A founder came to me last year absolutely certain her product cost is $12. She had the supplier invoice, she'd done the math. $12 per unit, period. 45 minutes later, she was staring at a spreadsheet that said 19.4. That 7.4 gap cost she'd never thought to track was eating 47K a year, money she thought she was making but wasn't. And here's what kills me. Sarah isn't bad at business. She's smart. She's detail-oriented. She just didn't know what to count. I see this every single week. Founders making pricing decisions, ad spend decisions, inventory decisions, all based on a product cost that's missing 30 to 40 and sometimes 50% of the real number. I'm Lara. I've spent 17 years in supply chain and finance, and I've done this cost audit with hundreds of products. And today I'm going to tell you 4 stories. Real founders, real numbers, real surprises. Each one found money leaking somewhere different. Marcus discovered his freight cost was 3 times what he thought. Jennifer found out her 2.5 per order 3PL was actually 6. Another brand learned that 34K of slow inventory cost them $11,200 just to store. And Rachel, she's the transformation story. Her $12 product was actually $27 when fully loaded. But knowing that made her 34K more profit the very next quarter, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where to look for the cost you're probably missing. And I'll give you the same audit template I use with every brand I work with. Now let's start with what most founders get wrong. Here's the thing about product cost. There's a journey between what you pay your supplier and what lands in your bank account. And every stop along that journey costs money. Most founders track exactly one number, the supplier's invoice. But that's just the first stop. Let me map out the full journey. Now, your supplier makes a product. You pay them. That's the invoice cost. Then it needs to get to your warehouse. That's the freight. But not just the shipping code. It's origin charges, destination charges, customs, duties, broker fees, tracking. For DTC brand, these adds 10 to 20% to product cost. Then it arrives at your warehouse or 3PL. There's receiving fees, inspections put away, not huge, but it counts. Then it sits there waiting to sell. Storage isn't free, and slow-moving inventory compounds those costs every month. Then a customer orders, pick, pack, and ship. The box, the tissue paper, the insert, if you have one, every element costs something. The customer pays you, but 2.9% plus 30 cents goes to Stripe or Shopify payments. Some customers return. That's reverse freight. Processing, lost product value, wasted acquisition cost. When you add all of this up, your supplier invoice is often 50 to 60% of the real cost to get money in your bank account. Now, let me show you what this looks like in practice. Marcus sells fitness equipment, not huge stuff, but dense, the kind of product where shipping costs matter. He had what he thought was a good handle on his cost. Supplier is in China, $14 per unit. Freight quote is $4,800 for a container of 6,000 units. Quick math, 0.8 per unit. Total product cost is 14.8. He'd been using 14.8 in every calculation for 2 years. When we did the audit, I asked to see the actual freight invoices, not the quotes, the real bills. And here's what we found. The 4,800 was just the ocean freight, but there was also origin charges, factory loading, export documentation, terminal handling at Shanghai, $420. Destination charges to LA, port fees, chassis rental, container demurrage because the 3PL took an extra day to unload, $680. Customs broker fees, $350. The big one, duties. His product category was subject to 12% import duty on 84K of declared value. That was $10,080. Tracking from LA to Nevada 3PL is $1,400. Add it all up, $17,730 in actual landed freight. Divided by 6,000 units, it's 2.96 per unit, not 0.8. His 14.8 product was actually 16.96. The one with 3 SKUs, the heaviest one, was even worse because it took up more container space per unit. When Marcus recalculated margins with real freight, he discovered that SKU was below break-even point on every sale. And he'd been advertising it as a loss leader without knowing it was an actual loss. He raised the price by $8, sales dropped 15%, profit went up 40%. Now, Jennifer runs a beauty brand, growing fast, just switched to a 3PL to handle fulfillment. She dropped around, got quotes, found a competitive partner. The pitch, 2.5 per order pick and pack. Good rate. She budgeted accordingly. First month's invoice came in. She was expecting around 7,500 based on her order volume. The invoice was 18,400. What happened? The 2.5 was just the base peak fee. Here's what else was on the invoice. Pack materials, 0.65 per order. Boxes, polybags, tapes weren't included in the quote. Oversized surcharge, 30% of her SKUs didn't fit the standard packaging. 0.4 extra per order. Insert fee, 0.25 to add. Her branch card to each package. Receiving. She'd sent in a new shipment, 880 to receive and put away. Divided by units, another 0.38 per unit sold from that batch. Storage, 0.55 per unit per month. She had about 12K units, averaging 2.5 months in warehouse. That's 1.38 per unit when allocated to sales. Returns processing, 8% return rate, $4.5 per returns. That's 36 per unit sold. Label fees, 0.08 per package for shipping labels. Her actual fulfillment cost is $5.95 per order, not 2.5. That $345 difference times 3,000 orders per month was $10,350 per month in cost she had not planned for. She wasn't getting ripped off. 3PL pricing is just genuinely complex, and the headline rate is never the real one. Once Jennifer knew her actual fulfillment cost, she could price accurately, negotiate the right line items, and identify which SKUs were disproportionately expensive to fulfill. Now, this one's a cautionary tale. A home decor brand bought big into the trend. They saw a product taking off on TikTok, jumped on it, ordered 8,000 units, total investment of $34K. The trend peaked before their inventory arrived. Sales trickled in at 300 units per month instead of the 1,500 they have planned. At that rate, they were sitting on 26 months on inventory. Here's what that slow inventory actually cost them. Storage at their 3PL is $0.5 per unit per month times 8,000 units over the 8 months before they finally discounted aggressively to clear. That was already 3,200 just for the inventory to exist in the warehouse. Opportunity cost. That 34,400 sitting in boxes wasn't funding ads, buying better inventory, or sitting in a high yield savings account. At even a modest of 10% cost of capital, that's 2,270 over 8 months. Now, damages and spoilage. Some units got crashed. Some packaging got damaged, $840 in product loss. The eventual clearance, they had to mark down 40% to move the remaining inventory. On $18,000 of remaining product value, that's $7,200 in lost margin. Total cost of the inventory mistake is $13,510 beyond the original $34K. Their $4.25 product actually cost them $5.94 per unit by the time it was all cleared. The lesson, inventory isn't an asset that sits there for free. Every month it doesn't sell, it costs you in storage, in opportunity cost, and eventually in markdowns to move it. Now, let's talk about returns, because I've never met a founder who correctly calculates what returns actually cost. An apparel brand I worked with had a 90% return rate. For apparel, that's actually pretty good. Industry average is 15 to 20%. They were doing 25K orders a year at $65 average order value. So quick math, 2,250 returns per year. Here's what they are counting. The refund, customer sends it back, they refund the payment, done. Here's what they were missing. Return shipping label, average $7.5 per return. Annual cost is $16,875. Now, return processing at 3PL is $4.50 per return. Annual cost, $10,125. Inspection and restock, $2 per return. Annual cost, $4,500. Unsellable returns, about 30%, couldn't be resold as new, stains, damaged, used look. Average product cost is $18. That's $5.4 per return in lost product. Annually, $12,150. Wasted customer acquisition, they spent $12 to acquire each customer. 40% of their returners never come back. That's 4.8 in lost CAC per return. Annually, it's $10,800. Payment processing fees. They already paid 2.9% plus 0.3 on the original sale. They don't get that back. On $65 order, 2.19 per return. Annual is $4,928. On $65 order, $2.19 per return. Annual is $4,928. Add it all up, $59,378 in return cost per year, plus the margin they lost on return sales they would have kept, roughly $8,000. Total return cost is $67K per year on a 9% return rate. They've been budgeting $15K for returns. They were actually spending $67K. When we allocated return cost per unit sold, it added $2.68 to their delivered product cost. That's $2.68 they'd never been counting. Now, let me tell you about Rachel because her story is the payoff. Rachel sells skincare. She's been in the business for 3 years, healthy growth, but always felt like she was working harder than her margins justified. Her supplier cost is $12 per unit. That's what she used for everything. When we did the full cost audit, here's what we found. Supplier cost is $12. Freight and duties is $1.85. 3PL receiving is $0.32. Storage, 3 months average is $0.72. Pick and pack is $3.2. Packaging materials is $0.95. Payment processing on $48 sale is $1.69. Returns is $1.68. Breakage and shrinkage allowance is $0.36. Customer acquisition allocated is $4.8. Total delivered cost $27.57. She was selling for $48. She thought she had 75 gross margin. Her actual contribution margin was 43%. Still profitable, but she'd been making every decision based on 70% margin. She was approving ad spend based on 75%. She was pricing promotions based on 75%. She was deciding which products to push based on 75%. And here's what changed after the audit. She raised prices on her 2 lowest margin SKUs by $6 each. Conversion dipped slightly, profit per order jumped. She identified that her third best seller by volume was actually her worst performer by contribution margin. The product was heavy, had high returns, and expensive to acquire customers for. She stopped advertising it and let it sell organically. She found that her fifth best seller by volume was her most profitable product per unit. She shifted 30% of ad spend to that SKU. She negotiated with her 3PL on the 3 line items that were driving the most cost. First quarter after the audit, same revenue, 34K more profit. That's the transformation. It's not about working harder. It's about knowing the real number and making different decisions. So how do you do this for yourself? Step 1, get your supplier cost per unit. Easy one, that's your invoice divided by units. Step 2, calculate your real freight. Pull your last complete shipments documents, the actual invoices, not the quotes. You have to add the ocean or air freight, origin charges, destination charges, custom broker fees, duties. Look at your HTS codes or ask your broker. Tracking to the warehouse, divide total by units in that shipment. This is your per unit freight. Step 3, calculate your real fulfillment. Pull your 3PL invoice for the last month, total invoice divided by order shipped. That's your per order fulfillment. Don't use the rate card, use the real number. Also, calculate storage units in your warehouse times monthly storage rate divided by units sold per month is equal to the storage cost per unit sold. Step 4, add transaction cost. Payment processing percentage, items your average order value plus the flat fee. Step 5, calculate your return cost. Return rate times return shipping plus processing plus percent unsellable times product cost. Allocate per unit sold. Step 6, optional but powerful, add customer acquisition. If you can allocate CAC to specific products, include it. This is where most founders discover their best sellers are not their most profitable. Add it all up, that's your delivered cost. Subtract from your selling price, that's your contribution. The number will probably be lower than you expected. That's okay. Now you know what you're actually working with. I've built the exact cost audit template I use with every brand I work with. It has fields for every cost category you covered. It calculates your delivered cost automatically. It shows you the gap between what you thought your cost was and what it actually is. Comment audit and I'll send it over. Here's the thing, this audit isn't fun. The numbers are usually worse than you expected, but it's also the moment your business gets real. You stop making decisions based on incomplete data. You start making decisions based on truth. Sarah found 47K in phantom margin. Marcus found his flagship product was unprofitable. Jennifer found 10K per month in surprise fulfillment cost. Rachel found 34K in new profit without changing revenue. Your number is in there somewhere. Go find it.